This is the Construction Leading Edge podcast from constructionleadingedge.com. My name is Todd DeWalt, and we are all about helping construction business owners and leaders create freedom, impact, and wealth. In this episode, here's what you're going to learn about. The 8 ways that you could be sabotaging your delegation skills. Here's what you're going to take away from this. You'll learn about the real reasons your team may not be taking ownership and solving problems on their own. The reasons your delegation may not be working, how you may be your own worst enemy, the question your team desperately wants an answer to. We'll talk about the what, why, and how, which of those you should focus on and which you should probably stay out of, and then the dangers of having a specific type of mindset. Here are a few resources I want to share with you before we jump into that. When it comes to experiencing growth in your construction business, you have to think differently about how you run it. Because to eliminate chaos, maximize revenue, and grow your business, you can't do everything on your own, right? You eventually realize that your valuable and expensive time shouldn't be spent on tasks like bookkeeping that can be easily delegated to someone else. And this is where our friends at Belay can help. Because whether you need a US-based bookkeeper, a virtual assistant, social media manager, or website specialist, Belay has the right, highly vetted, US-based professional ready to help you. And to help you get started, Belay is offering their latest book, Delegate to Elevate, for free. In this ebook, you'll learn how to reclaim time to focus on the things only you can do by delegating, to unleash the powerful, multiplying effects of entrusting others. To claim this offer, just text the word EDGE to the number 55123 for your free copy today. That's EDGE to the number 55123. Start delegating your bookkeeping to an expert from Belay to regain your peace of mind. You'll wonder why you waited so long. If you own a construction business, I want you to imagine this. Imagine that your team is solving problems quickly, with fewer mistakes, and without you. In other words, they're taking ownership. Your phone is ringing a lot less with questions, you're getting a lot fewer emails, and fewer problems are landing in your lap. You have time to think, time to operate strategically and be proactive. You have time and the mental bandwidth to work on the business instead of being stuck working in it. Your projects run more smoothly, they start on time, there are fewer fires to put out, and you finish them on schedule. You know what you want your business to look like 2 years in the future, and you have a plan to get there. If that sounds good to you, I would invite you to check out my free online training workshop titled Get Out of Your Business, How to Make It Run Without You This Year. You can watch it free by going to constructionleadingedge.com/get out. Here's what you'll get out of this webinar. You'll learn your first few crucial steps if you want to spend more time working on your business instead of being stuck working in it. You'll learn 3 things you should absolutely do before you make your next hire. You'll learn a proven process to design your construction business for the future, how to motivate your team to take more ownership and solve problems without you, and a lot more. You can watch the free online training workshop at constructionleadingedge.com/get out. That's constructionleadingedge.com/GETOUT. And if you want to work with my team to systematize your construction business, go to that link, watch the video, and click the button to schedule your strategy call with my team. All right, here we go. Let's talk about 8 ways you could be sabotaging your delegation skills. The first one is that you've created an environment where only mind readers can succeed. You've created an environment where only mind readers can succeed. This is because nothing is documented. Everything is in your head. All of your processes reside in your head. Everything from how to qualify a lead, the kind of projects you want to go after, your pricing approach, how to estimate what your financial targets are, if they exist, what your cash flow needs are, if you even know what your financial targets are, the promises and commitments you've made to customers, the deals you've made with trade partners and suppliers. It's all in your head. And if that's the case, you have created an environment where only mind readers can succeed. and it makes it very difficult for the people on your team to do that. It's very difficult for them to succeed because they don't know what you want. They don't know what is supposed to happen. They don't know what's going on inside your head. This is a huge mistake when you've created an environment where only mind readers can succeed, and you assume that everybody knows what's in your head because you're thinking it. That is a big problem. Here's the second way to sabotage your delegation skills. Imagine this scene. Imagine you're watching the Super Bowl in 2022. It's the Los Angeles Rams versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Rams coach Sean McVay is standing on the sideline, has his headset on, has his playbook in his hand. Suddenly he gets frustrated, takes off his headset, slams it on the ground, runs onto the field, pushes his quarterback, Matthew Stafford, out of the way, calls a play and takes a snap. And then runs back off the field, puts the headset on, and then a few plays later, when his team's on defense, he jumps in on defense for a snap or two. And then he decides the game's tight and he needs to kick a field goal. So he puts on a helmet, goes out there, pushes his kicker out of the way, and he kicks the field goal. What would happen in that case? Well, everything would stop, first of all, because the coach can't step on the field. There would also be mass confusion, and people wouldn't know what's going on. And the same thing happens when you jump into a situation that someone on your team should be handling. When you take a call from an unhappy customer, and then you make commitments. Then when you go around your project manager and talk to a trade partner, when something isn't going fast enough for you, so you just step in to, quote, help. Have you ever done that? What happens then? Well, you thought you were stepping in to help, but now your team isn't sure what they're supposed to do. Did they make a mistake? Is this your responsibility now? Are you handling this customer every time there's a call? Are you managing that specific trade partner? Are you running the meetings now? They don't know because you ran in, you stepped onto the field, you picked up the ball and ran with it, and then you put the ball down, and maybe you're thinking that, well, they're supposed to take it from there, but they don't know that. So you think you're stepping in to help just in that one situation, but now your team doesn't know what to do. They don't know if they made a mistake. They don't know if that's the new policy, if that's the new procedure. So one of the biggest mistakes you can make that's killing your delegation, that's sabotaging your delegation skills, is jumping into the middle of the play. You're the coach, so coach them. Keep the headset on. Stay on the sidelines. Resist the urge to jump on the field and get in the middle of a play. Mistake number 3 that could be sabotaging your delegation skills is not answering a specific question that everybody on your team is asking. They may not be asking it out loud, but they're wondering it in their head. And that question is, what does winning look like? What does winning look like? I heard a story from a business owner who partnered up with a guy who had a mulch blowing business. He had a couple of mulch blowing trucks that you dump mulch into, and it has this blower device, and it blows mulch through a hose. And this guy who was telling me the story said he looked at the financials and he realized that this mulch blowing business had been losing money for a couple of years. Every month they were losing money. It was just a giant sucking noise. So he ran some numbers pretty quickly and figured out how many loads of mulch they needed to blow every day just to break even. And it was 3 loads of mulch every day. So this guy went out to the field and met up with the guy who had been running the mulch blowing trucks for the last couple of years and said, "Hey, John, how's it going with the mulch blowing? Like, how are you doing?" John's like, "Man, we are consistently blowing 2 loads of mulch every day. We are crushing it." Well, Eric, the guy who was telling me the story, said, "Well, got some bad news for you, John. You need to blow 3 loads of mulch to break even." And the color just left John's face because John thought he'd been winning for the last 2 years. He'd been blowing mulch. He thought he was being productive. So he realized for 2 years he had been losing been losing money. He'd not been putting points on the board. So what happened after that? Amazingly, John and his crew started blowing 3.5, 4 loads of mulch every day. And what changed? Did they get new equipment? Did they get more manpower? Did they suddenly start having some outside force that changed? No. The only thing that changed was John knew the answer to the question, what does winning look like? So good people want to know, am I winning? Am I doing a good job? Which requires them knowing the answer to the question, what does winning look like? It also requires you to know the answer to the question, what does winning look like? People want to know, what results am I accountable for? What are you expecting me to do? What am I accountable for this year, this week, this month, today? So if you're frustrated with someone's performance, make sure they know the answer to the question, what does winning look like? If you're not, you could be sabotaging your delegation skills. The next one is number 4 is delegating tasks without any context. Delegating tasks without any context. There are really 2 parts to this. Here's what it looks like. Telling people what to do and how to do it, maybe focusing more on every little step that they need to do without telling them why it's important or how it fits into the big picture. Let me say that again. The big mistake people make when it comes to delegation is focusing on telling people step by step how to do something without telling them why it's important or how it fits into the big picture. They go overboard on the how and they ignore the what and the why. So these are a couple of mistakes mixed together. First is delegating tasks instead of delegating results. Let me say that again. A big mistake is delegating tasks instead of delegating results. The second is telling people what to do and exactly how to do it. Telling people what to do and exactly how to do it is a big mistake. And third is assuming that your way of how you would do it is the best way or the only way to get something done. Here's an example. 7 years ago or so, I was managing a large project as part of a team. It was a $30 million office construction project. I was working for a real estate developer, and I worked with a guy named Keith. And Keith had a very different personality, very different style than I do. Keith's style was, well, when Keith led a meeting, they might last 4 or 5 hours. And Keith talked really slowly. Keith believed that if there was an issue, that the best way to address it was to take the client out for lunch or take the contractor out for lunch. And he had a very different style. My personality style, my communication style, it was very different. Still is very different. I would describe it as, I heard a great acronym from Jocko Willink's team, BLUF, B-L-U-F. My communication style is bottom line up front. I'm going to go straight at the issue. If I ask a yes or no question, I'm looking for a yes or a no. And Keith had a very different style. And that style worked for Keith. He was very successful for 30 years or so in the business. But so here was the issue. Keith wanted to have long lunch meetings with the client, wanted to take him out for drinks once a month to discuss issues, didn't want to bring things up in meetings, never wanted to email issues. And that worked great for him, but it didn't work for me. And I said, look, what do we want to accomplish here? What is the desired end state? Is it we want to make sure the client is happy? Tell me what winning looks like, and then let me take care of how we do it. And I scheduled meetings in a different way and came up with a how that matched my style. So here's what works better. Instead of delegating tasks and telling people exactly how to do it and assuming your way is the best, here's what to do. Explain the desired end state, or as Jocko Willink talks about in Extreme Ownership, what is the commander's intent? What does winning look like? What does it look like when we're done? Put some parameters around it. What are the lines on the field, so to speak? What's inbounds, what's out of bounds? Then explain why it's important. So tell them what needs to happen, go into detail on why it's important, and then let them figure out how to achieve the results. You'll be amazed when you do that, because every pair of hands comes with a free brain, okay? And it's incredibly liberating for you and incredibly empowering for them when you do this. When you say, this is what needs to happen, this is why it's important, and then let them figure out how. Number 5, the fifth mistake that could be sabotaging your delegation results is best summarized in one of my favorite statements. It's an old-timey, folksy kind of saying, which is, the best way to starve a horse is to have 2 people feed it. The best way to starve a horse is to have 2 people feed it. In other words, when 2 people are accountable for something, nobody is accountable for that thing. When 2 people are accountable for something, nobody is accountable for it. You have starving horse syndrome, if you want to call it that, when a few things happen. Here are a couple of ways that you end up with starving horses. Number 1, it's unclear who has accountability for something. It's not clear. There's no clear-cut accountability chart that outlines who is accountable for what. Another situation that comes up is when the customer or trade partner is calling multiple people on your team. Have you ever had this happen? Where a customer is calls everybody until they get the answer that they want. They start playing the mom versus dad thing. Well, you told me this, and they just keep calling until they get the answer they want. This is how you end up with a starving horse. Or you, as the owner or the leader, you jump in to help when you want to, or when you feel like you need to, or there's something you like to do, and then you want to jump back out. Or you ask, maybe you've delegated a task or a project to someone, but then you ask somebody to jump in and help just this once. Hey, Todd, can you jump in and help Keith? Go step in on this meeting, or hey, can you call this person? And you either go around the person you delegated it to, or you ask somebody else to go around them. Think about what that does to that person. Keith finds out that Todd called the electrician. Why the hell is Todd calling the electrician? This is my project. Or Bert ordered the materials for my job. What is going on? Richard asked Bert to order materials on my job. What is going on here? Did I make a mistake? Is this his job now? What the hell's going on? This is what happens. This is the starving horse syndrome. The best way to starve a horse is to have 2 people feed it. So make sure you have a single point of accountability. If something is important, then one person is accountable for it. Mistake number 6 that could be sabotaging your delegation skills is thinking that delegation is either all or nothing, that it's binary. It's either 0 or 100. It's either I do 100% of it, or they do it all with 0 guidance. It's like one extreme or the other. Either they do it with 0 guidance, or I jump in and go completely micromanager and tell them every little thing to do. Right? A better approach is to think of delegation as a stair-step progression. It goes from you doing everything to, let's say there are 5 steps in between there. The next step is, hey, go do this task. I'll tell you exactly what to do. That is gopher level delegation. Maybe the next step is, here's an issue. I want you to go assess the situation, come back to me with some options, and then I, the leader, will tell you exactly what to do. And then perhaps the next level is, here's a problem. I want you to go to assess the situation, come back to me with some options, and then make a recommendation to me, and then we'll talk about it. And then the next stair step up that progression is, here's a situation. I want you to go to assess it. Just come back to me with a recommendation. And then eventually The top step of complete autonomy is just take care of it, leave me out of it. I don't even want to know. So when you're delegating, think about what level is this person capable of? What's the right level of delegation for this task? And then always be trying to step that person up to the next level. Move them from gopher level to come back to me with some options. And then the next time, come back to me with some options and a recommendation. And then the next time, come back to me with a recommendation. Then the next time, just tell me what you did, and we'll talk about it afterward, okay? You also need to understand good delegation math. Delegation math says that 80% done by them is better than 100% done by you. I'll say that again. Delegation math says 80% done by them is better than 100% done by you. Okay? So don't think delegation is all or nothing. Mistake number 7. Listen to this list of diseases and see if you can guess what they all have in common. Okay? There's a common thread that runs through these diseases. Night blindness, anemia, rickets, osteoporosis, and goiter. What do they all have in common? Well, if you guessed that they are all deficiency diseases, you would be correct. Just like scurvy is a deficiency for a vitamin C. Night blindness is a deficiency of vitamin A. Anemia means you are deficient in vitamin B12 and iron. Rickets is a vitamin D deficiency. Some people would say that the flu is a vitamin D deficiency. Osteoporosis is a calcium deficiency. Goiter, it means you have an iodine deficiency. And your team may be experiencing a severe deficiency as well. And it reminded me of a plaque that an old boss gave me about 10 or 15 years ago that said, quote, "One oh shit can erase 1,000 attaboys. One oh shit can erase 1,000 attaboys." Well, in most construction teams, there's an overabundance of oh shits and a deficiency in attaboys. In other words, there's a complete deficiency in any sort of positive reinforcement, any sort of celebration. There's a complete deficiency in positive reinforcement. So what do? Give out some positive reinforcement. When you delegate something to someone and they do a good job, let them know. Tell them, hey, you did a great job. I like the way you took care of that situation. I'm reminded of a scene in Hancock. There's a movie with Will Smith from years ago where he's this superhero, and he is terrible at any sort of positive reinforcement. And Jason Bateman somehow gets connected with him, and he's trying to fix his image. And he said, hey, just tell people good job every once in a while. And there's this scene where Will Smith flies in, and he's talking to some police officers, and very uncomfortably says, good job. So maybe you need to do that. Stretch yourself. Tell people, good job. I like the way you did that. It's going to be uncomfortable. Because for some reason in the construction industry, we feel like we are auditors, always looking for the deficiencies, always looking for what's wrong. And I actually had a business owner tell me, we don't need to talk about what's going right around here. We need to talk about what's going wrong. And as you might suspect, there was that guy was completely leadership bankrupt, I think would be a good way to explain his style. So give out some positive reinforcement. Proactively try to catch people doing a good job. Tell them about it. Talk about wins on the regular. Every time you have a meeting, talk about wins. Talk about wins on social media. Brag on your people in an Instagram or a Facebook post. Send them an email. Write them a note. You want to know how powerful a handwritten note could be? Here's what Thomas shared with me. He decided one Christmas that he would write a personal Christmas card with a handwritten note of appreciation to all of his employees, along with their Christmas bonus check. And one of his guys, Chris, came back to him almost with tears in his eyes after reading the note and said, sometimes I want to throw my hands up and say, screw it. But that note meant more to me than you'll ever know. That note, that handwritten note, that little Christmas card where Thomas just said, hey, thanks, I appreciate everything you're doing. Nothing elaborate. That note meant more to me than you'll ever know. And Thomas shared that even though these Christmas cards had checks in them, most of the feedback, most of the appreciation from his team was about the handwritten note. So fight against the deficiency of positive reinforcement. Catch people doing a good job. And then the last thing that could be sabotaging your success when it comes to delegation is probably the most dangerous. This one is incredibly dangerous and debilitating for leaders, and it is the fixed mindset. It's the fixed mindset. This comes from a book called Mindset by Carol Dweck. Pretty fascinating stuff. If you are a parent, you have children, if you're a leader, I highly recommend you check out this book. But in the book, Carol talks about some of the characteristics, some of the symptoms of a fixed mindset. Here's what a fixed mindset says. Fixed mindset looks at the world, looks at themselves, and looks at other people and says, I'm either good at it or I'm not. Fixed mindset says, my abilities are unchanging. I can either do it or I can't. My potential is predetermined. It's genetic. Feedback and criticism are personal attacks. It also says, I don't like to be challenged. The fixed mindset looks at failure as the limit of my abilities. And it also says, I have to be the best at something in my business. If someone is better than me at something, it's a personal attack. This one is very debilitating. We'll talk about that in a minute. This is dangerous for leaders for two reasons. The fixed mindset is incredibly dangerous and debilitating for leaders for two reasons. Number one, if you have a fixed mindset towards yourself, then all of those statements are keeping you locked where you're at. You're believing that you're either good at it or you're not. When you receive feedback and criticism, you take it as a personal attack. You avoid failure because you see it as a personal failure, and you believe you have to be the best at something. But it's really debilitating when you project your fixed mindset onto other people on your team, right? So when you project the belief, when you believe that the people on your team's abilities are unchanging, you'll say things like, well, they won't be able to learn. And if that's the case, if you believe people's abilities are unchanging, why would you train them? If you believe someone's potential is predetermined, you'll say things like, well, they're just a carpenter. They're just an electrician. They're just a concrete guy. They'll never be a whatever. If you believe that feedback and criticism are personal attacks, you won't give that feedback because you think it's offensive. If you believe people don't like to be challenged, you probably won't challenge them. You'll just try to find someone else. You'll think it's impossible for someone on your team to grow into the next level. Here is one of the most dangerous, one of the most debilitating ways the fixed mindset shows up. If you believe that you have to be the best at something, or you have to be the only one at something, and if someone is better than you at something, here's how that problem shows up. You'll say things like, well, you actually won't say it, but you'll believe it. You believe, I have to be the best salesperson, the best estimator, the best project manager. I have to be the best problem solver. I'm the one who has to deal with customers. Here's what happens. Imagine this. Imagine you have a tough situation with a repeat customer, someone you've worked with on multiple projects. They're like a strategic client. They send you a lot of referrals. And there's this tough situation. And Rachel is on your team, and she steps up, and she handles it like a rock star. She handles it well. She gets involved. You find out that there was this big problem that you didn't know about, and you find out that Rachel took care of it. So the customer doesn't even call you about the situation. But you start to see these signals about how good of a job Rachel did. You see a comment on Instagram from the customer about how Rachel's a rock star. Maybe you get copied on an email about how great Rachel is, and Rachel is starting to get some recognition. And now the customer isn't even calling you. They're calling Rachel. That's good, right? That's what you really want, isn't it? Not if you think you have to be the best. Not if you think you have to be the go-to guy. Here's what happens. If you believe that you have to be the best, if you believe that your customers have to come to you, and then suddenly they're trusting Rachel, they're not even talking to you, here are some things that might happen. You might start nitpicking Rachel. You might start pointing out some of Rachel's misses, like, yeah, Rachel's not so great. Now, she missed this one. Maybe you start being a little passive-aggressive. Maybe you feel threatened by Rachel, and you start coming up with these stories like, she's gonna take over my business. She's gonna steal customers away from me, and I can't show Rachel the financials, and I need to play my cards a little closer to the vest. You start seeing Rachel as a threat. The fixed mindset causes you to look at A players as a threat, because if you believe you have to be the best at something, when someone comes along and they're as good or better than you perceive them as a threat. And eventually, what happens? Eventually, Rachel gets tired of your Bravo Sigma, which is code for bullshit, and she leaves, and she goes somewhere else. And then maybe you say something like, you know what? You just can't find good help these days. And who is the real problem? You are. The real problem is you and your fixed mindset. If you, deep down, believe that you have to be the best or the only, you will see A players as a threat, and you will drive them away. And if you are a 7 on a scale of 1 to 10, you will never be able to attract, maybe you'll be able to attract an 8 or a 9, but you'll never be able to retain them because you will consciously or subconsciously drive them away. That is why the fixed mindset is so dangerous. So to recap, here are the 8 biggest mistakes that could be sabotaging your delegation. Number 1, you've created an environment where only psychics, only mind readers can succeed. Number 2, being the coach who jumps into the middle of a play. Number 3, not answering the question, what does winning look like? Number 4, going overboard on the how and ignoring the what and the why. Number 5, having 2 people feed the horse. Number 6, thinking that delegation is all or nothing. Number 7, the deficiency of positive reinforcement. And number 8, the fixed mindset. So here's what I want you to think about. I challenge you to think about which of these are you guilty of? Which of these mistakes are you guilty of? Are you creating an environment where only mind readers can succeed because everything's in your head? Are you playing your cards too close to the vest? Does your team know what winning looks like for the year, for the month, for this week? Are you delegating tasks, telling people how to do it, or are you delegating results? Do you have starving horses in your organization? Are you all negative, or is there a deficiency of positive reinforcement in your organization? So I challenge you to think about that. What is the mistake that you're making? And then what are you going to do about it? Hey, thanks so much for listening. I have one challenge and one request for you before you go. Here's the challenge. What is your 5-minute action item from this podcast? In other words, what is one thing you want to implement in your business or on your projects that will take you 5 minutes or less? My challenge for you is to create an action item as soon as this podcast is over and do it. Send yourself a text, send yourself an email, put it in your planner, write it down in your unicorn journal, whatever it is, but take action on something from this podcast episode so you get some real value from it. Now, here's the request. If this podcast has been valuable to you, please leave a rating and a review. Here's how to leave a review on Apple Podcasts on your iOS device. Number 1, open up the Apple Podcast app. Number 2, go to the icons at the bottom of the screen and choose search. Search for this show, Construction Leading Edge. Be sure to click on the show, not the episode. Then scroll all the way down to ratings and reviews, and finally click on write a review. These instructions will also be in the show notes. If you could leave a rating and a review, that would mean a lot to me, and it also helps get the word out there to other folks. And don't forget, if you want to get out of your business and make it run without you this year, go watch my free online training workshop at constructionleadingedge.com/get out. That's constructionleadingedge.com/GETOUT. Thanks so much for listening. My name is Todd DeWalt. I'll see you next time. As I mentioned at the top of the podcast, our sponsor, Belay, is offering a free download of their latest book, Delegate to Elevate. In it, you'll learn how to reclaim time to focus on the things only you can do by delegating to unleash the powerful multiplying effects of entrusting others. Just text the word EDGE to the number 55123 for your free copy today. That's EDGE to the number 55123. In no time, you'll be back to doing what only you can do, growing your business.